In this tutorial, we're going to look at a design pattern that allows the non-player characters to chase the player. The idea is that they will try to get closer and closer until they're in the same position as the player. This is a fairly straightforward game design pattern. It just involves changing the way we do the movement for each of the NPCs in our list. We're going to set up a monster speed constant that can be tweaked to improve gameplay, and we're then going to swap out our random drunken walk code for something that checks the X and Y coordinates of a particular monster. If they are less than the players, then it'll add a bit on. If they are more than the players, it will take a bit off. And this way we should be able to home in and meet the same position as the player. So I'm going to go to the Birkdale School Replit Teams, and I'm going to come down to Team Projects, and I'm going to have a look at number 9, Customize the Core Code. When I click on this, I will get into the main section, so I'm going to have to fork the code here. You will obviously have the code forked automatically. So I'm going to click on here and choose to fork. And we'll just have a quick look at what it is that this code does at the moment. So if I click on Run, then we should see that what we have is a cop, and the cop can be moved around and bounces off the corners of the screen. And there are 5 zombies here, and when I collide with them, then they are giving me points. So obviously I'm getting points for hitting the zombies. That's not a good idea if they're going to start chasing me down and giving me more points. So I'm just going to make a few quick changes to the code. Okay, so rather than the speed of the cop being what gives us our points, we're just going to say return 1 if there is a collision. And what we're going to do is that instead of saying that our score is going to add on the check collide, so we only get points for colliding things here, what I'm going to say is that the score gets a score plus 1 for every time, for every frame that we're alive, we will get some score. So what does the game look like now? Well, I am getting points just for being in existence. And what I could say is every time a zombie catches me, I lose some points. So I could say score equals maybe 1,000 times check collide, or score minus. So I'm going to take away 1,000 points every time I bump into a zombie. So I'm very quickly into minus points there. If I get out of the way of them, maybe just go over here and stop. Oh, keep bumping. So if I can just stay in this little corner here, then I've got some score, but I bumped so many times that I've got a big deficit to make up. There's our idea. So what we're now going to do is we're going to make the zombies chase us. So we're going to start off with a monster speed constant, and then we're going to fix up the movement code for each monster in the NPC list. So I'm going to come up here to above my game loop here, and I'm going to say monster speed equals 2.0. This is a number that we can tweak later on, worth mentioning that. Tweak for better gameplay. And then we're coming down to this section here. So I'm just going to close up this so that we can see a bit easier what our code looks like. So at the moment, each monster in the NPC list, we add a random amount to their movement. So I need to just comment these two parts out here. I'm going to comment out that one there, and I'm going to comment out that one there. So that's the X and the Y. And we're going to instead base it on comparing this monster to the player. So, if monster 0, which is the X coordinate, now if that's bigger than X, which is what the player's X coordinate is, if this monster is more to the right than that, then we want monster 0 to remove a bit. So monster 0 equals monster 0 minus, and then we're going to go for monster speed. Now, if we just did monster speed, it would move at a constant time all the time. So we're going to take that and we're going to multiply it by random.rand. Random. Random.random gives us a number between 0 and 1. So that will be a fraction of the monster speed. Okay. So what if it's not bigger than the X? Well, we're going to then say else. And we do the opposite of it. So if it's to the other side, we're going to add on a chunk. So we're going to say else, and we change that to plus. So if it's further over than us, we take away a bit of our movement, and if it's the other side, we add on a bit of the movement. We're then going to produce something very, very similar for the Y direction. So we're going to say if monster 1 is greater than Y, then monster 1 equals monster 1 minus monster speed times random.random. So again, a fraction of the monster speed applied. And if it's the other side of it, then we want, again, instead of subtracting, we're going to add monster 1 equals monster 1 plus monster speed times random.random. So let's see what's happening now. So before, they were just doing a random walk, jiggling about. And we've got an unindent problem to sort out first. So that's on line 91. And you can see here that my for loop, my ifs are not quite matching up inside that. So I need to just nudge all of these together forward a little bit. And then my scores will have to join up to them as well. And sure enough, they have all absolutely converged on my position there. And I'm losing lots of points. And you see that as I'm moving around there, they are trying to follow me, maybe a little bit fast. Let's try that again. So sure enough, they are all trying to home in my position. And one of the problems there is, of course, they're all going to bunch up with each other because they all end up in the same position. So what we can do is, again, tweak the speed of the monster bit there. Or we can decide that each monster only does these things every now and again. And that way each one won't do it every single frame. So what we can say is, and I'll just move this back a little bit here so that we're inside the for loop for each monster, but we're now going to put an if that wraps around it. We're going to say if random dot randint, and let's give it 0 to 10. If that's greater than, let's say, 5, so half the time this should work, then we're going to update the speed. And you can see that they are not quite, I've given them too much time to get on, but they're not quite one big lump anymore. And in fact, if I was to change this so that it only happens maybe above 9, and I'll remember to click in this window this time. So they're all in their own way trying to shuffle towards me. Maybe they're a little bit too clumsy, clunky now. So what I could do is maybe take this down to about, let's say, 7, and also tweak the monster speed to be a bit faster, maybe 5. So now they're kind of staggering after me, but they're not all staggering together, and they'll be less heavily grouped as a result of that. However, my taking away 1,000 points for each one that hits me was a little bit ambitious. So I'm maybe going to, I should really use a constant. So I'm going to say penalty. So minus penalty times the check collide. And then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to put penalty equals maybe 100 points. Maybe 100 is a bit ambitious as well, so maybe 10 points. Yeah, so obviously some tweaking needs to be done with these numbers, but that's why we use the constants, so that we can then play around and hopefully get something that is useful.